Today's episode is brought to you by our lead sponsor, Crew. Today, we're talking about Hurricane Helene making landfall in Florida last night, New York City Mayor Eric Adams' fraud and bribery indictment, Ukrainian President Zelenskyy's visit to the U.S., and other top news for Friday, September 27th. Stay informed while remaining focused on Christ with the pour-over today. Here's the quote of the day. We can control a few things: our attitude, our effort, our focus, and how we go about treating others. Tim Tebow. Let's get started with some espresso shots. Helene majorly rained on the Sunshine State's parade last night, with winds over 140 miles per hour. Making landfall late last night near Tallahassee, the Florida Panhandle bore Helene's initial brunt, but rain, wind, and flash flooding are expected into Alabama, Georgia, and Tennessee in the coming hours and days, with hurricane conditions stretching 100 miles inland. President Biden approved disaster declarations for states in Helene's path yesterday. Residents in Appalachia Bay and Florida's Big Bend were on especially high alert after the National Hurricane Center warned of an unsurvivable 20-foot storm surge. Prior to landfall, over 42 million people across Florida, Georgia, and Alabama were under hurricane and tropical storm warnings. At least 17 counties along Florida's coast faced mandatory evacuations, with even Waffle House locations in Helene's path closing yesterday afternoon. As we wait for the redemption of creation itself, believers can share our hope through radical generosity and service. Join us in supporting the needy in Helene's path. We'll match the first $2,000 given to Operation Blessing, a faith-based nonprofit with boots on the ground and a record of doing great work. Operation Blessing is a paid sponsor of TPO. You can find a link to donate in today's show notes. Romans 8:20 and 21 says, "For the creation was subjected to futility, not willingly, but because of him who subjected it, in the hope that the creation itself will also be set free from the bondage to decay into the glorious freedom of God's children." NYC Mayor Eric Adams was indicted on bribery and fraud charges Wednesday. After a years-long investigation involving residential raids of the mayor and his top aides, prosecutors accused Adams of receiving benefits, like luxury international travel and campaign contributions, from Turkish officials in exchange for influence in Gotham. Adams' alleged corruption began in 2014. Elected on promises of reducing crime and bringing professionalism to the seat, the 64-year-old retired police captain is the first sitting NYC mayor to face criminal charges. The Big Apple boss says he's innocent and doesn't intend to resign, asking New Yorkers to wait to hear our defense. Many, including Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, say the office has lost public trust and Adams should resign. Others are calling on New York Governor Hochul to remove him from office. Here's a verse to consider as you wait for justice in a divisive political climate. The Lord is waiting to show you mercy and is rising up to show you compassion. For the Lord is a just God. All who wait patiently for him are happy. Isaiah 30, verse 18. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy returned to the U.S. this week. Wednesday, Zelenskyy addressed the UN General Assembly seeking renewed support for a Russian withdrawal and claiming Russia plans to attack Ukraine's nuclear plants, which would cause a nuclear disaster. Zelenskyy met with a bipartisan group of senators yesterday to detail his country's urgent need for more firepower before presenting his victory plan to President Biden and VP Harris at the White House. Ahead of their meeting, Biden said Uncle Sam will allocate $8 billion in additional aid. Before his trip is up, Zelenskyy will also meet with former President Trump, the pair's first meeting since 2019. Not everyone is celebrating Zelenskyy's visit. House Republicans have opened an investigation into Zelenskyy's trip to a Pennsylvania ammunition plant with Democratic leaders this week, calling it a taxpayer-funded campaign event. Pray for the peaceful end to all conflicts worldwide, even as we wait for God's kingdom to come in full, for the day when God's reign of peace will settle every dispute and all nations will walk in his paths. Micah 4 verse 3 says, "He will settle disputes among many peoples and provide arbitration for strong nations that are far away. They will beat their swords into plows and their spears into pruning knives. Nation will not take up the sword against nation, and they will never again train for war." With over 1,000 translations and every type of decorative edition, it's easy to forget how many people can't even get their hands on a single copy of the Bible in their native language. This is why we've partnered with Cru. Cru has missionaries in almost every country, but they need more Bibles. One missionary said, "I have never seen such a thirst for the Word of God in my country. Let's quench that thirst." For just $24 a month, you can provide 3 people with Bibles every month. As a bonus, Cru will provide meals to 12 hungry individuals through their humanitarian ministry and send you a free TPO coffee mug. Simply text TPO to 71326 or visit give.cru.org/TPO. Again, that's texting TPO to 71326 or give.cru.org/TPO. Message and data rates may apply. Available to U.S. addresses only. In other brews, here's a rapid round of updates. President Putin has lowered Russia's threshold for a nuclear response. Moscow's revised nuclear doctrine says that any nation's conventional attack on Russia, which is backed by a nuclear power like the United States, will be considered a joint attack. In practice, this revision threatens a nuclear response against any country providing Ukraine with support for attacks on Russia. Israel is not letting up in Lebanon. On Wednesday, the U.S. and France proposed a 3-week ceasefire to allow Israel and Hezbollah to negotiate, but Prime Minister Netanyahu's office says he hasn't responded. Meanwhile, Israeli forces were ordered to continue the fighting with full force, and another airstrike in Beirut yesterday killed 2, including a Hezbollah commander, as ground incursion rumors swirl. Visa might have maxed out its monopoly. The DOJ filed an antitrust lawsuit accusing the credit card giant of stifling competition in the debit card market and tacking on excessive fees. According to the complaint, 60% of U.S. debit transactions are processed on Visa's network, raking in over $7 billion in fees annually. Visa called the lawsuit meritless. The 2024 Chicago White Sox really didn't want new losingest team ever as their nickname. Yesterday, the Southside Sox shut out the LA Angels to stay tied with the 1962 expansion team New York Mets for most losses at 120. They've got 3 games left to avoid or set a new record. Their social media team will keep us informed. 5 death row executions were held in the past week, an unusually high amount, with one garnering national attention. Marcellus Williams, convicted for a fatal 1998 stabbing, died by lethal injection Tuesday, despite mishandled DNA evidence casting doubt on his case. Prosecutors and the victim's family had pushed for a life sentence instead, but repeated attempts to halt Williams' execution were denied. And that's all we have for today. Thanks so much for listening. If you're listening on the Apple Podcasts app, give us a 5-star rating and drop a review. If you're listening on Spotify, give us a follow and hit the notification bell to never miss a new episode. We appreciate your support and hope you have a great weekend. We'll see you on Monday. If you're looking for exceptional stories, you're looking for the Nothing Left Unsaid podcast with former NFL player, TV personality, and #1 New York Times bestseller, Tim Green. 8 years ago, Tim was fatally diagnosed with ALS. Despite losing the use of his vocal cords, Tim is harnessing the power of AI to interview intriguing guests like Roger Goodell, the commissioner of the NFL. While not all guests are explicitly Christian, Tim's strong Christian values guide every thoughtful and inspiring discussion. Tune in to the Nothing Left Unsaid podcast every Wednesday. Just search for Nothing Left Unsaid on your favorite podcast app.